Good afternoon, fellow baseball way of lifers. Uh, Happy Monday to you. Hopefully, it's a good start to the week for you. And the first topic we're going to discuss in the new week is Steve Garvey. Yes, Stephen Patrick Garvey. We had a question a few days back. Do you think Steve Garvey is worth consideration for the Hall of Fame? And we got a lot of responses, meaning Steve is a very popular topic, even after all these years in baseball. I would have to say over 60% of you say no, maybe even close to 66%. We had over 200 replies, I think 240 something replies on the matter. And first, let's recap Steve's career in sports, and then I'll go ahead and give you my opinion and then go over some of the opinions of you, the fellow group members. Steve was nicknamed Mr. Clean. He was the All-American guy. I remember back when I was really into baseball, Steve was a prominent figure. So in the early 70s to the late 70s, when I lived and died baseball, Steve was the man. He was Mr. America. A part of the Dodgers. Dodgers were a winning organization. He had it all going for him. He even won the MVP award in 1974, although many argue he shouldn't even come close to winning the award. But I think his popularity as a Dodger, a leader, and just being on a winning ball club in a big media city had a lot to do with it. He got a lot of national exposures, as did those Dodger teams back in the day. He was a two-time National League Championship Series MVP in 78 and 84, a 10-time All-Star, and a two-time MVP of the All-Star game. And he holds the record, National League record for consecutive games played at 1,207. So Steve really made his mark. He was very visible on a good ball club, and he was probably on one of the most famous infields in baseball history, an infield that lasted together for at least a decade, I believe. Ron Say, Bill Russell, Dave Lopes, and himself. All you had to do was pencil those names into the lineup every day. And I don't think there's very few fans over the age of 50 who cannot name you the starting infield for the Dodgers back in the 70s. They were a prominent part of our lives. Now, Steve was born in Long Island, New York, and he was a bat boy for the Dodgers, Yankees, and Tigers during spring training. So baseball was in his blood even at an early age. He played football and baseball at Michigan State, and he was a pretty good defensive back at Michigan State. And he played his entire career in the National League West for both the Dodgers and the Padres. Dodgers from 69 to 82, and the Padres 83 to 87. And even with the Padres, he led his team to a World Series back in 84. They didn't come home with the trophy, but they did surprise a lot of people. They even knocked off the America's team, the Chicago Cubs, that year to get to the World Series. For his 19-year career, he was a .294 hitter, 272 home runs, and 1,308 RBIs in 2,332 games played. That is quite an impressive number. And as I mentioned before, he was a multi-sport athlete at MSU. He recorded 30 tackles and earned a letter as a defensive back in 1967. As I recall, Michigan State had some pretty good teams back then. His baseball jersey number 10 was retired from Michigan State University in 2014, and he was named Michigan State Baseball Distinguished Alumnus of the Year in 2009 and inducted into the Michigan State University Hall of Fame in 2010. Garvey was featured in the LA Times as one of the 3 Spartan athletes that have helped Los Angeles professional sport teams win a combined 7 world championships. I guess Magic Johnson's probably the other one. Now, who would that other one be? Kurt Gibson, maybe? Could be. I don't know. He was drafted by the Dodgers in the first round of the 68 draft, so he was a highly regarded prospect. And like I said, he was part of that infield of Say, Russell, and Lopes. And they did stay together as starters, as a unit for 8.5 years. I don't know if we'll ever see that again in baseball. So hats off to that nucleus. And what makes Steve unique is he is one of only two players to have started the All-Star game as a write-in vote, doing so in 1974. That was the year he won the MVP award, and he had the first of 6 200-hit seasons. And only 16 players in all Major League Baseball history have had 6 or more 200-hit seasons as at the end of 2017. So way to go, Steve. And then he made a big splash when he signed with the Padres in 1982 for $6.6 million over 5 years. As Jack McKean went after Garvey to rebuild the team, and they outbid the Dodgers vastly. But Garvey, I think in his heart, wanted to stay a Dodger, but the Dodgers may not have wanted him, as I recall. And let's see, what other highlights did he have? His career honors are that 1,207 game consecutive game streak played. He's a member of the Irish American Hall of Fame. So I didn't even know Steve was Irish. Now I know. He was inducted into the Dodger Hall of Fame, Legends of Dodgers Baseball, as part of their inaugural class in 2018. In 1984, he committed no errors at first base. And in his 15 years on the National Baseball Hall of Fame ballot, he failed to reach the 75% required for induction. His highest percentage of votes was 42.6 in 1995, and he received 21.1% of his votes, other votes, in his final year on the ballot. So Steve didn't gain steam like most players do as the years go by. His popularity actually waned in the balloting as the years went by. So what do I think of Steve Garvey? If you had asked me that when I was a teenager, I'd say yes, Steve belongs in the Hall of Fame. Again, he was one of the players that automatically you thought of when it came to baseball in the 70s. A lot of eyeballs were always on him. He was very popular with the youth of America, played for the Dodgers. He had that all-American image, as though we found out Don Sutton and a few off-the-field activities. Let's just say he might have been a player off the field. Kind of put a damper on his squeaky clean image. But now that I look at it realistically, he was in the right place at the right time. He was a good player on a good team, or a very good player on a very good team. But is he Hall of Fame worthy? He played for, I think he started out as a third baseman, but he couldn't handle it there. So defensively, I don't think he was up to Hall of Fame standards. You can say he was a leader, and he was one of the plugs in the middle of the lineup for the Dodgers. And he was a consistent bat. But is he someone you would have built a franchise around? Is he a Hall of Fame player that said, wow, I got to have him on my team amongst everyone else? I don't think so. I'd love to have Steve Garvey on my team, but I don't think he was a Hall of Fame player per se. So that's my opinion. I don't think Steve belongs, but we can go and I'll just scroll through some of the thoughts you guys had. Mike Carminati says, I am contractually obligated to say not my Padre. He's not nearly a Hall of Famer. Tim Hall came in and said he was the cornerstone to a great infield and very solid. I'd have no problem if he got in one day, but not sure if that will happen. And I think that seems to be the running consensus. So Tim kind of nails it there. Paul Maini says absolutely holds an NL record for consecutive games, overshadowed by Cal, but don't diminish it. So if you're going by a consecutive game streak, he's a Hall of Famer, but is that really what dictates whether or not a person should be in the Hall of Fame? Always open for debate. Jan Renui, well, I guess Jan kind of wants this video to end here because he says absolutely not. His case has been beat to death. And in a way it has, but no matter what, he's one of those figures in baseball that when you mention his name, people do want to talk about Steve Garvey. And a lot of the yes, no's. And Keith Zazowski adds a little humor by saying, that would be a hard no. Signed, Lee Smith, 1984. Robert Picaro kind of gives my sentiment on this. Keith first. Yes, I think if either of those two first basemen are considered, Keith would be my choice first. Scott Julie says consideration, yes. Induction, no. That's exactly what we posed by giving you this question. And Scott, thanks for your contribution on that. Craig Judges says this tongue-in-cheek. Yeah, because the Hall needs a guy with a 329 on base percentage. There are currently no Hall of Fame first baseman on base less than Garvey. He would definitely stand out. Good one, Stan. Don't sue me, Craig. I just asked the questions and let the people take it from there. Not necessarily my opinion. I agree with you. He should not be in. But if we don't ask, we can't find out what the people are thinking. And I respect everyone's opinion, by the way. A lot of yeses, a lot of nos. And Scott Madison, as a huge Steve Garvey fan, had this to say. I was a huge Garvey fan growing up, still am, but no, he shouldn't be in. He had a great 10 or 11-year run, but he needed 2 or 3 more for his numbers to add up. Tony Alice gives the counterpoint and says, should already be in. And Ed Annunziato, guys, you have to come up with shorter last names here. You're killing me sometimes. Sorry, Ed. I'll get your name right after I say it a few times. He says, after Don Mattingly gets in. Don Mattingly's a future question coming up soon, so wait patiently. Don's time will come for this. Robert Strickoff says, my favorite non-New York Met player, but not Hall of Fame. Great, but not Hall of Fame. I think he was respected by a lot of fans, even if he wasn't a member of your favorite team. So kudos to Steve on that. Billy Cormales Jr. says, yes, based on the data, if the Hall of Fame doesn't start letting non-3,500 home run, 300 win guys in the Hall of Fame, we'll end up with Albert Pujols. And if Miggy gets his 3,000, Trout will not have 3,000 hits, and 0 major league pitcher will ever win 300 games again. Well, that's kind of a question for another day, but point well taken, Billy. Jeffrey Coker brings up a very good point when he says, no. However, the same voters who denied him for 15 years and kept giving him high MVP finishes every season. It seems very inconsistent on their parts. I guess time changes the opinion of all. Maybe the writers were realizing that they were picking the wrong guy for the MVP all these years. Who knows? But yeah, his MVP numbers were not that spectacular. Eric Moses, he dragged Harold Baines into this. He says, yes, he was a winner and a clutch player. And to be honest, if Harold Baines is in, then he should be in too. I guess that'll be the answer for a lot of players, won't it? And John R. Graham kind of has the same sentiment when he says, if Ron Santo can make the Hall of Fame, anybody can. Evan Jacobs says his stats aren't far off from Hall of Fame numbers. I mean, anyone who has over 2,500 hits is very impressive. Richard Padra says, sure, just as Glove alone gets him in, he saved the lives of many fans. So if he's a lifesaver, he gets in. Why is he a lifesaver? Well, Richard says those first field box fans from Aaron saved them from errant penguin sacks and Lopes throws. Dan Shirley says, let's make it a double induction. Let's put 2 Dodgers first basemen in during the same year, Hodges and Garvey. The one thing I've learned is never say never and expect the unexpected. Who knows? It could happen. Joe Badgley says, finally. As you could see, I don't know if I can, I'm dead with this. Oh, anyway, there's a picture of Steve saying, a little meme saying, finally. Another person says, yes, him and Gil Hodges. That's Tony Zureb, Xureb. God, tell me how you pronounce your name, Tony. Mitch Karen says, simply, it's not the Hall of Very Good. Matt Prozilak says, very good player, borderline stats, tough call. I can't even decide. Jim Albatron takes the opposite point. He says, yes, he was considered a future Hall of Fame during his playing days, but his Hall of Fame voting eligibility coincided exactly with the rise of roid use. So suddenly his 20, 30 homers a year, 110 plus RBIs, 300 batting average should not look so impressive. But fact is, very few combined power and average like he did. But roid users made his numbers look small. His scandal probably was hurt him as much as well, but it was really not much of a scandal by today's standards. He impregnated 2 different single women while he himself was single in a short period of time. Big whoop. Valid points. Miles A. Runsdorf says, no, outside looking in, lots of strikeouts, below league average on base percentage, slugging percentage at 775, way too low. And that is pretty low, by the way. When you're below 800, it's tough to be considered for the Hall of Fame when you have a slugging percentage that low. Weak WAR. David E. Braun says, I agree. He had a low on base percentage. Corey Quist comes in with, it seems like there are times when the media overhypes and singles out a guy who plays with other great players. And even though they are really good, it's how as fans of the sport. You can make the case of being signed out by TV during the Dodger run hurt the perception of how good he really was. I think he meant singled out, but I kind of get the gist. Andy Natalie scratches his head and says, frankly, for some reason, I always thought he was. Peter Carrillo says, give me a break. Hall of Fame is for the greats, not the very goods. Mike Martin comes in with a funny one. He says, Hall of Fame for getting women pregnant. Touche. Darren Witzke says, yes, many years of 200 hits, Gold Glove, or consecutive game streak. Benny Wood says, I believe Garvey should. He was a top performer in his position all throughout the 70s. John Keenan says, he'll get a shot with the Vets Committee or whatever they're calling it these days. And I think he will. You know, if the right people are on the committee, when his name comes up, he does have a shot. Depends if he's well liked or not, I guess. And again, we got a lot of yeses, little no. Bill Nichols made a funny. He says, no, forearm Hall of Fame only. Yes, he was Popeye. He wasn't the sailor man, but he was the Dodger first baseman. Frank Sauer says, I'm small hall, so all good. I'd be a no. I don't think there is a small hall anymore, so I guess everyone has to be considered. But small hall or not, I still wouldn't pick him. Warren Handy says, I would like to match his number with Ron Santo. He eventually made it. I think Garvey was about equal. And that is a good point. Just as Santo is Mr. Cub, Garvey could be considered Mr. Dodger, even though he went to the Padres for a few years. Gene Hootmaker says 2,500 hits, 294 batting average, 200 hits 6 times, 10-time All-Star, a ring, Gold Gloves. Yes. Thomas Swap says Dusty B was better. And I think Dusty Baker thanks you, Thomas. Scott McFadden says it's not an All-Star game, it's the Hall of Fame. He didn't earn the Hall of Fame. We got Dave McGowan says good player, right on the edge, just under 300 homers, 272 and a career 294 average. John Kim says, yes, he was the best first baseman nationally for 10 years. I hope the Veterans Committee votes him in. Also put Richie Allen in also. It's also time to put Gil Hodges too. I think those 3 will be debated from here to eternity until one of them does get in. Fred Zittle says Fred McGriff and Garvey at the same time. Fred's another one who's on the outside looking in. And that basically sums up everyone's opinions. There are more. I can go on and on. You guys all responded great to this. Gave me a lot of thought. Good opinions, pro and con. So I thank you all. And I hope you're enjoying these videos. And we'll be picking up topics that are the hot topic of the day going forward. Big news tomorrow. We'll begin our 30 teams in 30 days. There'll be exclusive, I guess, reviews of the upcoming season for all 30 teams. one day at a time. And it'll be exclusively here on the YouTube channel, not in the Facebook group. So if you want to see those, subscribe to the YouTube group. You'll get an update as when they come in, or you can visit the site. As I ask on all these videos, if you like them, say yes. If you don't, say no. Feel free to leave comments, and please keep watching. It makes these fun to do, and I hope you're enjoying them. I'll talk soon, probably later today. Have a great day.